Sometimes you're casting on for a project that requires a high number of stitches. For example, a blanket might require that you cast on a couple hundred stitches. You can still use a longtail cast on, but you might be wondering how it is that you figure out how long of a tail to have for your project. So the first method that I'm going to show you is simply wrapping the yarn that you're actually using around the needle that you're actually going to be using for the project. And you want to wrap it around your needle by placing the end of the yarn at the base of the needle, and we're just going to wrap it around the needle 10 times as good, about as snug as you think you might be knitting, maybe a little more loose to be conservative. So let's do 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you see it's not too tight, but snug enough. So this length of yarn here is about what 10 stitches of yarn length would be. So I'm going to double this. So this is 20 stitches length. So you continue to double. So that makes 40. 60, 80, 100. So this is 100 stitches. And so if I need to cast on 200 stitches, I would double that length. You're likely going to have some extra tail left once you cast on, but you know you'll have enough there. And so this spot here is where I will make my slip knot. And then the next important step in this is leaving your tail for your cast on towards you before you go to do your long tail cast on. And that'll help make sure that you're using up the tail of your yarn in your cast on. And then you would just go on, cast on like normal until you have all your stitches on your cable. The second trick you can use when you need to cast on a large number of stitches, I actually learned sitting at an open table one day with another experienced knitter, a more experienced knitter, clearly, who showed me a trick where I actually pulled a second strand from the center of my ball and I linked it up and left about a 6-inch tail. And then you just cast on from here like normal. And then once you get your number of stitches, you just snip off the yarn from the center pull part. But for our purposes, so you can see what this actually looks like in practice, I'm going to give a second contrasting color to help show what it is that we're doing. Okay, I've brought in my second color. So again, you could also do this if you have 2 balls of the same color yarn. If you wanted your cast on edge to be the same color, you could do that as well. But I just wanted to show you what it would look like. This would look the same if you were pulling the yarn from the center of your ball as well. So you leave yourself a 6-inch tail just so you can weave that in and just tie yourself a knot And then whatever color you want to be along the edge for your cast on edge, as you're getting ready for your long tail cast on, you just want to make sure that that's the color that's around the thumb. And so you simply continue your cast on, long tail cast on, as you normally would. And so you'll see as I'm doing this, the color on my thumb is what's here along the cast on edge. And you continue that for however many stitches that you need. And then whichever color you're continuing with, you leave that as your working yarn, and then leave about a 6-inch tail to cut off and weave in for your second yarn. Another method that you can use to cast on large number of stitches is the cable cast on. And it's nice because you can start with your slip knot close to the end. Again, leave yourself about 6 inches. So you have a nice length there to weave in at the end. And for this, it's also good if you only need to use one, if you only have one available strand of yarn to work with in other scenarios. So you start with your slip knot, and you're going to knit one stitch. Make sure you grab your working yarn, knit one stitch into your slip knot, and then you're going to put the stitch that you created onto your left needle, but you're going to twist it and then set it on the needle, and then tighten it up a little bit there. Let me show you that one more time. You're going to create your slip knot. You're going to knit one stitch. Give it a little pull here so there's a little extra slack. Twist that stitch, lace it onto that needle. And that's the first part. Now that you have your 2 stitches, you're going to insert your needle in between these 2 stitches. Make sure you go ahead and get the needle all the way through. Make sure you grab that working yarn, not your tail. You're going to knit one stitch in between. Again, give it some extra slack. Twist the stitch, put it on that left needle. You want to make sure you give yourself some extra slack here, otherwise this gets tight. But you still want to try and have consistent stitches on your cast on here. So again, insert the needle in between, knit the stitch, twist it, put it on the needle. This is an easy cast on for beginners as well. It's appropriate for beginning level knitters. Just be mindful of bringing the stitches closer towards your tips of the needle. You don't want to lose them, so make sure you trap it with your index finger here. I would say that's about the spot. You're at higher risk of losing your stitch off the tip of your needle. Twisted it, on the needle. And there you have it. That's the cable cast on.